Bienvenidas a todos a nuestra sesión aprovechando las fortalezas de los aprendices diversos con Scratch. Estamos muy emocionados de estar aquí con todos ustedes hoy. Mi nombre es Sara Vogel.
We are here today. My name is Sara Vogel. I'm an investigator of education in sciences of computing, and I'm here with three groups of speakers that are going to talk about their projects, supporting communities of Scratch. You will learn more about us. And before starting, I have some hints for you that for the session to be working all right. First, this session is going to be mostly from Spanish. Spanglish. Thanks for your patience with my Spanish. There will be interpretation with the sign languages. You will see that on your screen. And if you want to listen to your presentations in English or Portuguese, you have to click on the screen of the video here for you to select other languages. So to start with, we want to have an activity to start running our engines. Well, I have a question for the audience. Can you answer with the chat in Flipkart? First, with the completing, fill in the blanks, and I am, and with your different identities. And then you will answer, have you used Scratch to explore your identities and how? For instance, I am from New York. I come from New York. I'm Jewish, and I had a project of Scratch of a feast day, and I shared that with my family. And I would put on the chat the project that I had, if I can. But by now, we will see what you are writing on the chat.
I'm wondering, I'm not seeing, no estoy viendo todavía.
I don't see the chat on my screen yet.
No sé si hay alguien del equipo de Scratch que nos pueda ayudar con eso.
Is there anyone from the Scratch team to help us with the chat?
Calentando los motores.
Maybe people are just starting getting connected.
Okay. Ahí está.
Okay, here it is. Good.
Okay. Perfecto. Ahora puedo
Okay, perfect. Now I can see everyone here. So fill in the blanks. I am. Have you used Scratch to explore your various identities and how? That's the question.
Okay. Veo alguien.
Bien. I see Cecile from France. She's saying she has used Scratch with her students in order to fill some special needs. I see Ricardo from Brazil, and he's been using Scratch with his teachers.
Hay alguien de Italy,
Someone from Italy, and I have never used Scratch. That person says. Okay, and what about someone who has used Scratch for exploring their multiple identities? We want to know about that.
Okay. Muchísimas gracias por sus contribuciones.
Okay, thank you very much for your contributions. We have people using Scratch for programming to represent who I am. For instance, someone from Guatemala.
Estamos muy
from Lesotho as well. So here we are very glad to have you here.
alguien de Irak.
We have
Bienvenido.
someone from Iraq as well.
Okay.
Welcome.
A continuación, como
So
hemos
next,
visto con
as we have seen here with the different contributions from our colleagues, Scratch may be a platform for promoting exploration of identities and experiences, and the identities and experiences of young people influence how they use Scratch, for which reasons they use it, and how they are used in the classrooms. The presentations today have educational programs working with young Scratchers that are very talented. Most of the participants of the programs in our presentations also are members of different groups that in our systems, in our societies, have marginalized because of their status, their languages, or their disabilities. The projects of our panelists try to use Scratch to promote the expressions of their skills to help them in their cultures and to facilitate learning and exploration in many areas. In some of these projects, the participants and educators use Scratch among other tools and strategies to promote equity and justice in the world. With the speakers, we will have 5 minutes. We will talk about diversity of the experiences in our participants and how we use Scratch in our programs. And then we are going to talk for 15 minutes in order to answer some questions, and then we will open the conversation and we will invite you to talk to the panelists.
There should be a button on your video which
Hay un, hay un botón
for you with some English translation. Okay. Entonces vamos a empezar.
So then we are going to start. We have first Lauren Berrios. She's a teacher of media arts from White Plains City School District. Bienvenida.
¿Quiere compartir mi pantalla?
So I need to share my screen.
Okay. Bueno.
Okay.
Hola, me llamo Lauren Berrios. Mi padre nació
Hello, my name is Lauren Berrios. My father was born in Puerto Rico. She didn't teach me Spanish. I'm learning a little bit now. I'm a teacher of media arts in New York, and the next year I will teach sixth grade, but during many years I taught on the primary school.
Enseñé dos tipos de
I
clases
taught
de
two types of
intervención
classes
visual
of
especial,
visual
clases para
enrichment,
estudiantes
classes for
entrados
all the
primero y
students
tercero
in the
y
first
clases
two, the
especiales
third
para
degrees, and
niños
selective classes for some
cuatro,
students
cinco,
in
siete
fourth and
años
fifth
tomando
grades,
TESA en un examen.
obtaining a high
Tercer
score in the exams. Third grade as well. I'm sorry.
De hecho, tercer grado también era un
So
programa selectivo, pero no
this was a
todos los
selective program,
graders
but the
podían
school, I
tomar
mean,
durante COVID.
the
Así que
students
permitieron
couldn't
que
take
todos
the
puedan
test because of
tomar.
the COVID, so everyone took the class.
Es un
And this
problema
selective
porque
program
los
is a problem
ejercicios de
because
artes
we didn't
mecánicas
have classes of arts
para sus
or
estudiantes
computing
en
for all the
estas escuelas.
students in fourth or fifth grade.
Hay 5 escuelas en mi
There are
distrito
5
y
schools in my
todas
district,
ellas.
and I work with all of them.
Tuve
And
1,800
I had
estudiantes cada año.
1,800 students every year.
Esas escuelas tienen
3 of
programas
these schools have
bilingües, inglés y
bilingual
español.
programs in English and Spanish because
60% de nuestros
60%
estudiantes son
of our
latinos.
students are
Las otras dos
Latin,
escuelas
and the other
especializan
2
en
schools are
neurodiversidad.
specialized in neurodiversity.
Usé Scratch en cuarto grado
I
para
use
enseñar el
Scratch in
diseño
4th
de
grade to
juegos y de
teach
personajes.
design of games and characters
Los
of video
estudiantes
games.
diseñaron
So the
personajes
students
basados en
design
cosas de sus
characters
vidas.
based
Hubo
on
desafíos
something
para
of their
todos,
lives. We have
desde clase de ciencias,
based
marketing, por supuesto,
um,
refuerzo
characters of tsunamis, and much more. Last year, I participated in CSTA. It's a group that promotes equity in the teaching of sciences and computing. We studied the book called Live Genius from Code Mohammed, and I changed this lesson to allow the students to talk about their identities.
Los estudiantes eligieron palabras
The students chose words related according to their personalities, and
Esas palabras se convirtieron
these
en
words
colores para sus personajes.
turned into colors for
Hicimos
their
muchas más
characters.
formas
We did the
también.
same thing with the
Descubrimos
shapes
que
as
sus
well, and
fortalezas
they
mentales y
said their
emocionales
mental, emotional strength
contribuyeron a sus poderes.
turned into superpowers.
Los estudiantes
So
primero
the
planearon
students
sus
first
personajes en papel.
plan their
La niña de
characters in
la
paper.
derecha
The girl
designó
on the right
que tenía
designed
superpoder de
something
hablar
that
con
was with a
animales,
superpower of the girl had a
niño
superpower of talking to animals because
eh,
she likes animals,
el niño que diseñó
and the
este
boy
personaje
who designed
eligió
this
el
character,
rojo
he chose the
porque
red
tiene
color
mucha energía, el
because it has a lot
círculo
of
porque
energy,
le gusta
and the
trabajar con
circles
otros,
because he
y
likes to work with
azul porque
others,
es fuerte.
and he wrote that
Este
he is
personaje
strong
tiene
because
muchos
his
músculos.
character has a lot of muscles.
Finalmente, el año
And
pasado
finally,
comencé a
last
usar
year,
Scratch Junior
I
en las
started to
clases de
use
Eduard
Scratch
y
Junior with the
Sistema en
UPD
segundo grado. Me
in
gusta más la
first and
versión con
second degree.
cartas y
I
abrojos.
like these versions
Al
because these
final,
are
los
short and
estudiantes
open, and at the
diseñan
end,
sus propios objetos
the
y
students
agregan código.
design their objects and
También
add
comencé
some
a
codes.
diseñar un
And
diseño
also, I talked
porque algunos
Spanglish
estudiantes
because
no
there were
hablan
some
inglés.
students who did not
Mis
speak
estudiantes me
English,
ayudaron
and my
mucho.
students helped me a lot with that. So, thanks to my students.
Muchas gracias, Lauren, por su presentación.
Thank you, Lauren, for your presentation. And next,
Con nosotros,
we
Roger
have with
Oliveira
us
y
Roger
María
Oliveira
de Sistema
and
THEAD.
Maria from
Me
Systems
gustaría
of.
que ellos vengan al
Let
escenario a
me
presentar.
put them on the screen
Hola,
for
hola,
their
buenas tardes.
presentation. Hello, everyone.
Vamos a compartir pantalla.
We are going to share our screen first.
Ok, ¿pueden ver?
Can you see that? Okay.
Listo.
Nosotros somos Roger y María de
So we are Georgette
Barcelona.
and Maria from
Somos la
Barcelona,
empresa
and we
Sistema.
belong to a company named
Somos una
Sistema THEAD.
empresa social de
We
formación
are a
de
social company for
impacto
teachers
positivo
that
en
we
la
want
sociedad
to
y en la
generate a
economía.
positive impact on society and students.
Creemos que la educación
And we
es
believe
una
that
herramienta
education
para cumplir
is
los
a
objetivos
motor for
que tenemos como
meeting the
humanidad y por
objectives
esa
that we
razón
have as
creemos
humanity, and
que
that is why we are
los objetivos de
centered
desarrollo
on the
sostenible
developing goals that are sustainable.
unimos las STEAM, los
So
perdón,
we
los
unite
ODS en
STEAMs,
la
the
accesibilidad.
ODS,
Estamos
and
trabajando mucho
accessibility.
en
We have been
aspectos de
working
accesibilidad
hard
y
on
accesibilidad.
areas of
Como decía antes,
accessibility.
somos María
As I
y
said
Roger y
before,
somos
we
los
are
tres
Maria and
cofundadores de
Roger.
Sistema TED.
I am
Trabajamos con
co-founder of
profesores
Systema THEAD.
Roger
I work with teachers, and Roger,
Hago la formación de profesorado
I
en
work on with
mecánica
teachers.
espacial
I
con
also
Spacios
work with
Maker
robotics and with the Spacios Maker,
bueno, y
and
formador de Argumentastic para el
I
aprendizaje.
also work with TIC tools for
trabajamos
learning.
para nuestra principal
We
misión es
work
trabajar
for
para
our
reducir
main mission is to
el
work to reduce
desigualdad
the
y la
digital
desigualdad
gap,
social y socioeconómica.
mostly because of social
Gender
economical
equity por
problems,
motivos de
digital
género,
problem because of
brecha
gender,
digital en
and
personas
also
con
digital gap
discapacidad.
because of people with
Por esto,
disabilities.
actualmente
And
hemos
because of
creado
this,
este centro
currently
educativo
we have created
Junior
this
Barcelona
is
Tactile.
Scratch
Roger nos
Junior
explicará un poquito
Barcelona
de
Tactile.
lo que hemos
I will
conseguido.
let you know about what we
Vamos
have
a
done.
presentar hoy este proyecto, que es la
We are going
presentación
to
de
present this
esta
project, and we will
Scratch
let you know about it. This is
Tactile,
Scratch
que es
Junior Tactile
y
from
es un
Barcelona,
recurso
and
que permite poder
it's a
programar
resource that
para
allows you to
robots
program
sin pantallas,
for everyone without
que
any
es mucho más
screen
inmersivo
in
y
such a way
permite
to be more immersive, but also to use it
tocando
tangible,
con el cuerpo
touching with
y también
your hands and body, and
de
also
forma
to
inmersiva,
program
tanto tocando
by seeing, by touching and
como
seeing at the same
hablando. Y de
time.
esta forma lo hemos hecho
And
de
in
tal
this
forma
way,
que pueda ser
We have done it tactile to be used by children with visual disabilities and other disabilities, and it's going to be available for free to be downloaded. We can print it with any kinds of printers. So the 5 pillars that we have, as you can see here, these have to be with cognitive, creation, emotional, physical, social, and the 5 P's of creative learning of scratch. That is projects with passion, playing with peers, and the last one is purpose, because we like to choose projects with a purpose, as those of the OTS. In Spain, we have 7,500 students that are blind or with visual disabilities. This is a big problem. There are many students, and we don't want them to be aside. They are in their classrooms, and their classmates help them, and they do scratch even more. And usually, it's hard for them to participate. So we have with scratch, we have different activities with different roles. So we have this is education for sustainable development. So we have created a prototype in terms of design thinking, where we first we had tests with different materials, and then 3D printing with these blocks of Scratch Junior. We have been collaborating with the team of Scratch and with many uh, entities from Barcelona. We are lucky that we have Tactilens working with us in Barcelona. They have uh, worked with us, and they have facilitated and collaborated with us. And then we have here the second prototype with colors and shapes, because obviously we needed to have to be attractive for all the kids. And here we can create this with different materials. And here we can do tests with children with visual disabilities. I mean, sorry, these are children from 4 to 6 years old, and they loved this, and they wanted to have more functions with this board with the tactile pieces. And these are children with different kinds of disabilities. Here we have contrast, and the pieces we have learned with our test in order to improve the prototype. This is the ONCE. This is National Blind People in Spain, and these are materials for everyone, not only for children with disabilities, that obviously it's mostly for them, but for every children, because they can learn with their hands without screens, help the children to understand the concept, to go to the right rhythm, to share with their classmates socially. And we have tested this, and the results and the opinions have been very favorable. We will let you know a little bit more later. And these are the websites where you can find the designs, and then we will share where you can find these designs. And thank you very much for your invitation, Sarah, and all the other people. Thank you very much, Roger and Maria. You are interested in what you're doing. So you can see here the comments of the people. Next, we will have Eduard Muntaner Perich from UdiGitalEdu Research Group. And now we will continue with him. Good afternoon. I'm going to share my presentation.
Vale. Pues yo soy Eduard
And
Montaner.
here you can see this is Eduardo Montaner from the Universitat de Girona in Catalonia.
Concretamente trabajo en un grupo de
And
investigación.
I work with a research group named UdiGitalEdu.
Y en este grupo lo que hacemos es un grupo
And in this group, this is a group with different disciplines, with research of different disciplines. So what we do is to design experiences of learning based on children and young people and adults as well, where we use the technologies, creative technologies, to create skills as teamwork, critical thinking, curiosity, empathy, kindness that you mentioned before. And this is done with a focus on schools for vulnerable communities in our local projects. We have specialized in different schools, the schools that we call multicultural schools because the government of Catalonia they call them high complexity schools because there are many uh, students coming from migrants. They don't know our languages. They have started in the middle of the year, so they don't know everything. But also we do projects at European level, and now we have started in India, and we have collaborated with them, and we have pictures of India, and in our groups and projects, I would like to say that we have, with these years, we have learned how to take advantage of the cultural diversity. We are experts, and there are many diversities. We try this, and the most important ideas about this is the first one: let the children explore their diversity. How we do this? In these years, we have done it with different projects. We started with the invents with change, and then we have inventors, and then inventat. What's important is that we promote that children from different countries and different cultures cooperate for a few months, explore social issues, and co-design a story that in the end is going to be a digital story with created with Stretch. We follow a methodology, and this is a cooperational work working with diversity and the team, and when they are connected with other teams from other nationalities, and because of the social topic that here we have an example in terms of the refugees, the topic itself makes them to work with their diversity, especially cultural diversity. This is the first idea, to let them explore in terms of their diversity. The second is to introduce the culture of the world in the classroom. Before the introduction, we talk about the struck education of the SEC, and we participated in this project on this. This is the second year, and one of the things that we have learned is this idea of culturally relevant pedagogy, to take advantage of the cultures we have in the classroom, to design the activities, to create materials. And with these pictures, we took them in India from Bangalore a few days ago. Here at first sight, this is a workshop where children use Make and Scratch to create musical instruments, but this is a workshop that goes beyond. And here we have a couple of students from the Faculty of Education in India. And these students, Anna and Ainoa, designed a workshop where children first explored musical instruments with different families, but also with different countries and cultures. And then, in cooperation, they chose the instrument they wanted to create, and they built it with Scratch and with making media. This idea of introducing new cultures in the classroom within the activities that we design. The third idea is to dare to mix. In the Scratch team, we talk about this idea that the Scratch is very easy to do things in Scratch, and the sky is very high. We can do incredible things, and it is very well designed because we have different types of learning, and we as educators design activities. If we mix disciplines, we are helping to keep these open windows, because in the examples that we have here, we mix art and technology. The idea of hacking the art is something we have explored, and this makes children to work with the artistic part or technology or music. But if we dare to do activities that are mixed, in the intersection of different activities, we keep the walls open and the children use their skills and different learnings. And the fourth idea is to adapt to the context. And a secure thing in these classrooms where we have a lot of diversity, many times it happens that the classrooms are the classes that
etcétera. Por lo tanto, tenemos
that have less resources. So we have to adapt ourselves to this context. And here we can see this. We are in this conference, we talk about Scratch, but also you don't have computers or robots. And in this case, these are workshops of robotics with no robots using our bodies. There is a concept that is famous that we haven't explored. This is disconnected or unplugged informatics. And here the children were playing as a robot. They were programming and they were learning what is a sequence of instructions. They were inventing new instructions, etc. So they adapted themselves to the context. And the last slide, teaching some of this is the Montec. It comes from Montessori and technology. It's a European project that we had in our university, and we are exploring how we can teach technology, Scratch, microbeams, Mickey Mickey, etc., but using some of the principles of the Montessori philosophy that when it was born, the idea was to provide education of quality to children of the poor areas. So, and then it became, in some countries, that are very elitist schools. With these projects, we could imagine what Maria Montessori could do and how she would use Scratch and these tools. And we are designing many activities inspired in the MIT and Harvard, but also creating our own activities. For instance, we are thinking about how to introduce Scratch with different activities to introduce Scratch in the classrooms with different cultures. And in October, we are going to have a book. We have the draft of the book and we will publish it in October. And you will see it in the montessoritech.eu. And this is my presentation. We may continue. Thank you.
Gracias, Eduard. Me encanta ver las posibilidades.
Thank you, Eduardo. These are the possibilities where we have children from different cultures and they are supported to be creative. Okay, then it's me.
Lista. Ok, otra vez. Buenos días.
So once again, good morning,
Me llamo
good evening.
Y hoy estoy representando un proyecto que se llama
So I am represented. This is the project participating in literacies and computer science. So we are a cooperation between different corporations in the area of computer sciences for children in New
and computer science for multilingual or bilingual children in New York. The involved number of people is huge. You can see here and here and here. For those of you who don't know the New York concept, schools tend to 1.1 million students tend to have, and 40% of these students speak one or more languages at home. In fact, 189 languages are spoken, and 13% more, over 100,000 students receive services to learn English. Many of these students are migrants or children of migrants. It's a super multicultural context, and if we want initiatives, computing initiatives for everyone are successful, it's truly important that the benefits can reach this part of the population. In our project, we had to define the problem properly, the problem that we think we need to solve, and we defined the problem along with with the systems. Traditionally, schools are qualifying students that speak many languages as low performance students, seeing them for their deficits, and we try to classify them based on their strengths. We need to promote the participation of these students in computer sciences, and systems must change, not students, for this. Multilingual student systems and students have communities involved that are highly valuable, and our vision is to have an educational system supporting them to sustain these practices and communities. We see a world in which bi and multilingual students use their language and code to learn, to critique, to contribute to the most important conversations in our world, among others. We have a theory that's guiding us. This is the North Star of the project, and that theory is the translanguaging. When people use all of their communication resources in a fluid and flexible fashion to learn and express themselves. The translanguaging acknowledges that the linguistic practices of our students cannot be so easily classified as just Spanish, just English. As Lauren mentioned, they use Spanglish words and from many languages and from emojis and pop culture references. And as teachers, we must learn to use these linguistic resources to teach them. In our project, we've developed several resources for educators following this philosophy, all of them using Scratch. You can check a few examples on our website. I'm going to give you the link in the chat later on so you can check all of the projects to remix then. Now, but with the remaining time of my presentation, I'm going to refer to one example. Many introductory Scratch lessons begin with an analogy of a play, but Ana Castillo said her students would have more knowledge about the soap operas than about theater. That's what she thought. That's why a unit was created where students would compare Scratch with the soap operas using all of their communication resources in the process. First, we asked two students to go in front of the classroom, and then they disguised themselves and became actors to then play a very dramatic scene from a soap opera using Spanish, different gestures and tones of voices. Then we created a list of the components of a soap opera, such as the backdrop, the actors, the stage, and others. And then we designed a Scratch project using the same script of the soap opera that they rehearsed in the classroom. Then students made connections between the parts from Scratch and the parts of the soap opera using English, Spanish, and different symbols. And then to teach them the functions of Scratch codes, we requested students to draw the lines, the connections between the soap opera script on the one hand and the code on the other. And then students reflected upon their connections and comparisons on a short essay, because this was a language arts class and they must always write during these classes. In the end, the students remixed the soap opera and others to express themselves on Scratch. We must make the most of the linguistic and cultural practices that our students already have. These not only help them use Scratch, but to communicate in new ways and transform the discipline of computer science in their image. Now we'll have a discussion, a very broad discussion. Thanks to all of our speakers for contributing today. Let us start with a few questions that I personally prepared. I hope that people from the audience can write down the questions in the chat box so that we can enrich our conversation later on. I'm going to start with the first question for our panelists. Please tell us about a Scratch project that one of your participants has created or a group of them. And what is this project showing about the pedagogy or the philosophy, and why do you think this project is particularly special? Why is it important?
¿Hay alguien que quiere empezar?
Would anyone like to start?
Ok, pues nosotros queríamos compartir una historia.
We wanted to share a story about us testing the first prototype, we went to a school back then called Nadis in Barcelona. This is a school for children with mental disabilities and physical or motor disabilities. And then we were working with kids on wheelchairs, and we showed them the tactile or the touch Scratch Junior. You can see this Scratch cat in 3D here, or the snail, as you can see, even a butterfly. But we encouraged everyone to create their own characters because it's just like Scratch. You can create anything. But we had this character right here on a wheelchair, and immediately the child all of the children felt that they could relate to this character, so they were hooked. And we also saw that there were no issues interacting. It was more of a physical issue. We could work very well with the touch system. They would point out the different parts, the components they wanted. The teacher would align all of the components. They were able to solve all of the challenges and activities. There was a comment that they had tested Junior Scratch before, but it was too fast. It was going too fast for them because they needed to do things slowly and with fewer distractions on screen, so that we were truly happy because after a few days they told us that they were able to use Scratch Junior with no problems after doing it more calmly and more with physical help on the table. That was the story to explain that it's really important. The examples that we use are really important to represent children in their daily lives, their culture, or the projects that they choose. I'm listening to that representation throughout the project, this idea that projects must be relevant to the children. I know Lauren prepared another story for us. I'm not sure if you'd like, uh, I can go and move the slides for you. Yes, perfect. Thank you. I'd like to tell you a story about Avery. This was a fourth grade student who was in a class for students learning to control their emotions and behaviors. They liked NBA 2K and they used technology, but they just started to use Scratch with a teacher. Sometimes they can be frustrated and quit if they cannot do what they want to do. However, this person is also a leader in the classroom. Thank you. Avery did some research on sea monsters and took notes about. Oh, sorry. There's supposed to be sound for this presentation, for this project. Would you like me to play it? Yes. I can't hear it though. Give me a second.
3, 2, 1, acción.
3, 2, 1, action.
I sunk your boat because that's what I do best. Am like a whirlpool. I am as big as an island. Mwah ha 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 ha.
Es muy chistoso.
Es como una...
He's very funny. It's like a horror movie, actually. He wanted to spend so much time looking at the different backgrounds and sounds for the animated cartoons for adults, but we only had a couple of days to work on this project, but he was very, very proud of himself. Students hear the word no quite often, and when Avery hears no, he just keeps going. I reminded, well, he was about to quit, but then I reminded him about the research and suggested that we should start talking and writing the words so that then we could spend the rest of the time animating. I followed his curiosity. He wanted to know how all of the elements in the video would start from the same position, and one of the elements would hide when there was a click on screen. I love this, and it actually makes me think of the project that one of the students in our research did with, where they can really show their personality. And I believe that the example that I have also represents that. There's a student, Andy, who says that they're very intelligent, but they always says, I get distracted. They use the they pronouns. They reached the U.S. Sixth grade. They've always want to be a cheerleader, and they say that they speak Span English. They have a very broad linguistic spectrum and not much patience for activities that don't interest them. But one of the activities they created in the project involved students representing their path to school. And instead of doing what everyone did, just the top down maze game, the student decided to create a platformer and decided to be inspired by a game that they liked. Thundertale is called. And they said that I was hooked with this game because it gives you the ability to forgive, not just fight. And the game is about, well, they said boy or girl because the game, the player can identify themselves with any gender, and then the project was a way of also exploring the concept of gender and the relationship with this person and their identity. I would also like to add this part about instructions that they wrote in English, and I asked Andy, why English? Why did you choose English? Because this is a bilingual class that's spoken in both languages. And they said, well, most of the people who use Scratch speak English, and I want to reach the broadest audience as possible. They also shared that in the instructions they used that bromas or jokes that only the fan fiction community would understand. So there were jokes that I didn't understand when I read their instructions, but that's another way of relating basically with their communities. They was talking about the cheerleader community with the cheerleader community, fan fiction authors and fan fiction game creators, researchers, and other students in the class. So for us, Scratch is a way of having important conversations in the community. So if you want to reply to the same question, yeah, there was also a slide if you want to show it. In the end, there were two highlighted projects. Those are the ones. I want to mention one I already explained, the idea behind this project where children of different countries collaborate to create a digital story. What we see on the left of the screen, in this case, a project about refugees made by children in India collaborating with Catalonia children. And in Catalonia, the Catalonia school, there were children from many nations, many different identities. The class was in English, and for many children. Well, they spoke different languages, so there was much cultural and linguistic diversity in that classroom. But what I want to reinforce is the idea that working as a team, because we're making them work on diversity. But if this team connects to other team from a different reality, we work with diversity even further. And then if the topic that they're researching and then making into a story is this about refugees, well, you are also then working on cultural diversity, and very powerful ideas emerge. Where this project these projects were from children in their last years of primary school and the first years of secondary schools, and also doing these in English, which is not their native language, but they're working many concepts at the same time. And on the right, we have the same idea, but at this time made by educators. This was a training in Colombia, and this was a project about the peace process in Colombia, where different educators from many different schools in Colombia also worked in collaboration. This is sort of things that you can work with children, but evidently also with teachers. And that's it. I just wanted to highlight these two projects. Well, I love how all of the projects use different modes, different modalities to add to Scratch. Scratch is the platform, but you can also see paper drawings and this tactile, this touch objects that Roger mentioned, and the different modalities for students in our programs. I love to see that it's not just what they do in front of the screen, but how the community around it is involved, and there are many expressions around them. Well, now we have about 15 more minutes in this session, and I would like to invite people from the audience to ask questions. You can use the question function in the chat. However, I'm already seeing many questions about how to access Rodri and Maria's resources. Rodri, Maria, I don't know, would you like to add more comments to this? Well, yes. We've added to the chat a link. We'll share a link on Twitter also. We have a few designs that we've posted, but during this week we are finishing with the last design, and we'd like to wait another more week to have that design uh, in the proper shape to share it. But at the moment there are a few 3D characters, a new dashboard, and other designs. We're about to share it now in the chat box. But we also wanted, if it's possible, to share another image on how this could be expanded, if that's okay with you. Yeah, we are seeing other questions about the technology from Selena Hidalgo, for instance. Why not using 3D components with Braille? Is this because of the universal nature of the language? Well, that is the main reason. At first, we wanted to do touch scratch, but due to the since the Braille language is different in every language, and the 3D printing in Braille is not as simple. It's possible, but not as simple. We are working with Scratch Junior because it's universal, and then for the next step, we intend to use Scratch. Okay, well, that is the main reason. Everyone. We also felt that for this step with Scratch Junior, we have learned so much. It was simpler, but also complicated at the same time. So, with all of the knowledge that we've acquired working with the touch sensitive Scratch Junior, we are in a better position to work with Scratch. Okay, I'm sure everyone will be waiting for the Scratch version. I'm also seeing questions from Maria Barbara Domici, who states, Eduardo,
¿Cuáles edades pueden explorar estos temas sociales?
Since what is the starting age to explore these social issues? Well, we have done this in primary schools many times, or secondary schools also. You can work with multiple age groups, but it's true, it works best, the project works best when they are a little older, because the level of discussion and reflection that they can have on these issues is higher, so it's a richer discussion. However, with primary students it's possible as well. They can explore these kind of topics and share them. It's just that the teacher in these cases plays a more important role as a guide, leading the debate and discussion so that it's fluent. However, in secondary school, what we call bachillerato here in Spain, or at least the last 2 years of high school, this kind of project worked really well. And you can address any topic. We saw in Mitch's talk earlier the Ukraine issue, right? Very deep, very complex, and how there's hundreds of children that have been creating projects on this on Scratch. There's also people who would like to know the mechanics, right? How can we upload images that are drawn on Scratch for projects where this has happened?
We think this is quite important. When we have projects, we don't want to have everything on the screen, but we can use other resources, pencils, colors, paper, and also all what we do is that once the team of children has created characters and a scenario, we take a picture, and then from scratch is just we add where we can upload the information. Instead of going to the gallery, we can go directly to upload the pictures. Things that are easy, that the picture maybe has a background where you will have to delete afterwards. Things like that that you learn on the way.
Gracias.
Okay, thank you. I can see as well a question from Maria Barbara Donici about the use of TV programs for presenting Scratch and how we manage the risk of cultural stereotypes that could be part of some of these TV programs. And this is a right question. In the classroom where we started with this unit, the educator talked about the conventions of different genders. So she asked what the actors do in a soap opera, how they express. So there was an open conversation about these conventions, and we didn't treat this as stereotype idea, but it's good to follow this conversation. How these women are represented versus men in these programs, and how we can use Scratch para how we can use Scratch to dare these messages, dominating messages in our society. So I think this is a very good idea. And then I can see some questions about how to manage and organize the sequence of the projects with the students. Maybe this is a good question for you, Lauren, because you work in a very specific timetable in a school. How can you organize your time for students to perform a project in according to the time that you have available? We work in groups in order to have conversations, and we use storyboards. I don't know how to say that, but these are plans on paper with drawings and words. And that someone else who wants to add something. How do you organize your schedule? We try to promote that the projects are cross-cutting. That means among all the curriculums in such a way that it's not just one teacher that has the leadership of all this, but the ideal is that in our case, as we are teaching about building stories on social topics, we can work with the arts, with the technology, and language subjects, and this implies coordination, and that's complicated. Sometimes the schools are not willing, or actually they need to have a certain training because they are not used to work like this. But if we can get it, it's very interesting. And this leads me to another question. You're talking about systematic changes in the educational system, and there is no time for this cooperation among teachers. So we have to give them time, and this is a change from the top. I would like to finish with the 5 minutes we have left. What systematic changes in the world would help your educators and participants to be more successful, to have more learning and growth in their programs?
Y yo sé que es una pregunta bien
I know this is a wide question. If you have any a magic wand, what would you like to happen in the world to support your students? I said at the beginning, I work at the college, and for me, a change that I would like to see is in the training of teachers, future teachers, and I would like to see that it's not possible that a teacher today goes to school and he doesn't know about Simon paper or these theories that are not used in many curriculums of the universities around the world. And something else is that we are trying that teachers work with some methodologies that are active. The students are going to be the protagonists of learning by means of education makers, different methodologies, and the university where we are teaching the teachers, we don't use these technologies. So we have to learn and take notes as we are in the university and to teach with example so that the teachers are ready to work with these technologies. This is one of the changes I would like to see. I think one of the changes that, for instance, we would like to see in the world is that the schools sponsor solidarity. So those schools with the high resources among the projects, they create solutions for other schools with the lower resources, with difficulties. I believe it is important because the education of quality could be a system for everyone. We also sponsor, for instance, for senior students creating resources for other schools or for other schools with lower resources. That is to promote this service teaching to make senses with, for instance, using micro item or printers, etc. Something that makes a sense to help others, someone with disabilities, or to be more to awaken empathy to help other groups and to recognize them and support them. And this is also to have the focus on the people who really need this support. Lauren, do you want to say something? We have listened to many policies and ideas for our systems. Now it's your turn. I want to see education as a place for development of curiosity and love for learning. I would like to see all the students participating, even if they do not follow the traditional way. And I'm happy to say that finally all the students from the first to fifth grade now try. They're going to have a computing class next year. Oh, congratulations! That's great. So we are making the change that we want to see. And with just 1 minute left, I want this session to help educators to see what's possible when we build our programs with the identities of our students. Please continue the conversation in Scratch. You can ask about the projects. And here in the chat, we have projects that you can mix. I'm going to write down the website of my project, but also thanks to all of you for participating in this session. We are going to see each other in Scratch again.
Muchas gracias, Sara.
Thank you very much, Sarah. Thanks to all of you. Bye.